You're at your old trusty boat. You call my tea sparrow. I'm in the city of Mardi Gras.
Welcome to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we hear stories from everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand. Hey, everybody. Well, today I get to sit down with my cousin Jerome, who did a podcast with me a few months back about wine. He's an advanced level somm, and this time we just shoot from the hip and pretty much talk about anything and everything outside of wine, really, this time. So really interesting guy. Glad to sit down with him. And again, if you want to support the podcast and help keep this thing going, just get over to Patreon and look up Sailing into Oblivion. And big special shout out to all the patrons I already have. You guys are really helping me out, and I'm hoping to actually get some new microphones here pretty soon. So appreciate it, and enjoy the podcast. Check levels.
Yeah, is it good?
I think I'm reading you pretty loud and clear, man.
All right, man.
Shooting from the hip with my cousin Jerome, repeat offender on the podcast. Welcome, brother.
Thank you.
Cousin.
Thank you. Happy to be here yet again. And I can't get over going up to...
Keep that
Northern
mic
Michigan.
close.
Like that, is that better?
Scoot forward. Do whatever you have to do. I want to make sure the people can hear you. And, well, more than that, I just don't want to have to go back and edit and amplify
Do it
little
again.
sections. I'm lazy. Oh, man.
Bad idea.
Dude, you use the little thingy. We're just getting situated here. It's kind of early on a crispy 8-degree morning up here in northern Michigan. I've been having a pretty good time hanging out, trying to solve the world's problems up here. And
Just one bottle at a time, really.
exactly, yeah. It's a blessing and a curse when you have a somm come up here. You can't really get away from the wine and the scotch and things like that. But no, I think honestly the first thing I want to talk about is just that movie that you had us watch, the Guy Ritchie film.
The Gentleman.
That was unbelievable.
So much fun.
I could not. I was actually trying to work it through my head this morning, how all those twists and turns and everything, and yeah, I mean, not like I'm going to do any spoilers or anything, but my God, that was good.
It's so much fun.
Absolutely impressive. I mean, I've always liked his stuff because his other ones are Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch. Are there other ones?
Yeah, he's made the Sherlock Holmes movies were his, and then he dabbled in the King Arthur imaginative retelling. I think he's best known, especially for American audiences, for Snatch.
Yeah, that was a huge hit.
And then The Man from U.N.C.L.E. was also awesome.
Yeah.
I love that movie too. I think I'm not really... I love that crime genre. I'm not as into like the marijuana world that's outside of my like general day-to-day scope, but
Right.
It worked so well for what they were doing.
Oh yeah, it was just I don't know when I see that. I mean, I'm normally not sort of a big like violent movie sort of person, but when they throw those twists and turns, and you've got I don't know. I mean, that cast of characters is unbelievable. I couldn't believe that was
It's Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
Holy smokes! I mean, you know.
And the framing devices, like knowing that they're talking about a movie, and then Hugh Grant's character talks about like, the script he wrote, about the story that the audience is watching.
Yeah,
It's very the framing is very well done, and the skips back and forward in time are very well done, and the way that kind of pokes fun at itself about like the lip reading part where they're trying to translate and transcribe the conversation at the soccer stadium from Cantonese to English. That's hilarious. So I love that movie.
That was cool. I just wanted to, because I feel like you could actually, that'd be kind of interesting. And I know there's a lot of podcasts out there where they just peel through movies and pick them apart. And there was one pretty funny one I used to listen to. It had the guys from that show, The League. And it was,
like Nick
how did this
Kroll
get made?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Because it has a lot of movies from back in the 80s and 90s that I remember watching and being like, oh, yeah, geez, I remember how bad that one was.
I don't know that podcast, but I'll look into it.
It's pretty funny.
Definitely will.
They have some pretty good ones. Well, other than that, so you flew in from New York. How's the Big Apple?
City's great.
Yeah.
It is. I have this love-hate relationship with New York
Yeah.
because it really is, one of the greatest cities in the world, and you can get anything at any time for pretty much any amount of money, and there's a lot of convenience to it. But I also, I don't know, I miss like space. I miss this.
Yeah, the wide open plains of northern Michigan.
Yeah.
Tall trees everywhere.
And like quiet and not lonely, but just like less people. Like it's really wild how you can't walk down any sidewalk that I've been on, at least. You're never alone. There's never enough room. All the people are walking at different paces, so you're kind of having to, like, the strides are all different, so you might have to pass someone because you're going like half a step faster than they are.
Yeah.
And it's this constant barrage of cars and lights and sirens and people and dog shit and just everything.
It's
And
a lot of input.
it's a lot of input. There are people that have cars in the city. I don't, because it's just one more thing to kind of deal with. Yep.
Yeah.
There's street parking, but it's illegal, like for 2 hours on a random Tuesday morning every week. They got to actually move your car so they can clean the streets. There's just a lot of stuff that you kind of give up to live there. And I wish we didn't have to give those things up. And you could probably get a similar experience like when we lived in Chicago and we had like a dishwasher and we had a garage and we lived in a world-class city with amazing food. And
Now, when you were in Chicago, were you in the suburbs?
we were in a neighborhood called Westtown, so we were like 10 or 15 minutes outside of like downtown Chicago proper.
Oh, okay.
But we weren't like way out an hour away, like taking the train to work or anything like that. It was just one of the neighborhoods in Chicago.
But in New York, is Brooklyn, is that on Manhattan?
No, so Manhattan is like the island of Manhattan.
Yeah.
And then just to the east are the boroughs of Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. And then Staten Island is another little island like on the southwest off of Manhattan. And then there's New Jersey that slopes up.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And then the you would, I don't know. I don't know about technically, but when I think of like the suburbs of New York, you're kind of inching a little bit farther north into like Yonkers, New Rochelle, and then Westchester County.
Right.
So these little towns like Chappaqua and Katona and even far like Poughkeepsie, a little bit farther north, where you can commute down in like an hour and 15 minutes on the train.
And then get right to the city.
Like
yeah.
right in like, yeah, Grand Central, like right downtown.
Do you have any desire to actually live on Manhattan?
I had lived there. I lived there before in an even smaller apartment. You can kind of get what you pay for, So you can get a really great apartment in New York City if you have lots of money to spend on that. You can take the same amount of money and get a giant house, like 45 minutes outside of it.
Right.
So it just depends on the things that you kind of value. And right now there is a fun allure of New York. This was why we went there in the first place. It was like February of 2020, so it was just before COVID really hit.
Yeah.
We haven't really been able to enjoy all the things that New York can offer.
Yeah, it hasn't gone back to normal yet.
It's starting to thaw out a little bit.
That's what I hear. Well, I know you had talked there about, having to present, vaccine passport and stuff like that. But I don't know. I've seen some stuff on the news that New York was lifting all that. Or maybe it's just New York State.
I think so New York State, the governor is lifting the mask mandates, not for public transportation or, as far as I know, public transportation and like hospitals, I think.
Right.
But like smaller like grocery stores and things like that, you should be able to go to. Different businesses, I guess, also. I'm not an expert on this.
Yeah. Oh, neither am I.
But different businesses, it sounds like, has their own discretion about if they want to enforce mask mandates or not inside their stores.
Yeah.
For, out here, when you go to like larger grocery stores like Meijer, or you go to like Walmart or Costco, and there's so much space and the ceilings are so tall.
Yeah.
It might not make much of a difference. New York, the grocery store I go to is like the size of this room.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because they're little tiny. What do they call them? They're not
There's like a bodega.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's like slightly larger grocery stores. It might be this room plus that room. It's not much bigger.
Yeah.
But the ceiling is like 11 feet high, and the shelves are super packed.
You
so
feel, you're
like,
crunched.
you're very trapped in there.
See, it's so funny. A lot of the things that references that you make, the only knowledge of them I'll ever have is from movies, because I've never been to New York. I think I did an overnight there when I was a child, with my parents when we were flying somewhere.
Yeah.
Other than that, I've only driven past it, and I mean it. I'm not gonna lie, it terrifies me. Those big cities,
Terrifies
man.
me too.
Growing up small town and all that sort of stuff, and then obviously spending a lot of my time in the biggest wide open expanses on the planet.
Yeah.
And
Where
feeling
the horizon just goes to infinity. Like,
very
you just-
comfortable out
Yeah.
there. And I've talked to plenty of people that look at me cross-eyed when I say that, and they think, "Holy cow, I'd be terrified to be sitting 700 miles away from the nearest land." Especially alone.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, you live in New York City, and I feel like you're going to get stabbed or shot or hit by a car or a falling building or something. I don't know.
Well, the terrifying elements out, like, what were you terrified of when you were out there? Like, it doesn't sound like it was the loneliness or the expanse. I'm sure that there's, like, things like weather.
When I'm out at sea?
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, I mean, I'm always sort of worried about some big monster storm coming. I'd say the more poignant things that I can become very frightened of pretty quickly would be if some pretty curious whales start coming around, or sometimes in the middle of the night when you're crossing a pretty heavy shipping lane. Then it gets a little nerve-wracking, because eventually you're going to have to go to sleep.
Right.
And there's ships sort of around. And there's definitely been times where I'll be up for over 24 hours because there's just a constant string of traffic.
Yeah.
And that's probably, I would say, the most realistic threat that a solo sailor has when they're out there, is that they're going to get run down by one of these big giants, because it's it's not like they've got a guy with binoculars sitting on the tip of the front of the boat.
Yeah.
It's just not happening. And even though we've got a lot of good technology and things like that, still it happens. People get run over, and a lot of times the big ships, they're so big they don't even know it. I mean, I passed some of the biggest ones. When I first started out ocean sailing back in like 2000, if you saw a ship that was like 800 feet, it was, whoa, look at the size of that one, it's huge.
Yeah.
And they were moving really fast. And now it's pretty common to pass by ships that are over 1,000 feet. I think the biggest one, I want to say, was like 399 meters, which would be just about 1,200 feet or something.
Yeah.
And it's moving at 14, 15 knots, just fully loaded with enough goods to probably supply the island of Puerto Rico for a month. Who knows? It's crazy.
Have you ever worn like a heart rate monitor or a sleep tracker or anything like that?
No, I think the sleep tracker would probably contact the hospital directly and be like, "This guy's gonna die soon." I couldn't even imagine, because typically it's a couple hours here, a couple hours there. Sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's 5 hours, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't think one of those trackers could really do it all that well, just because of the whole motion of the boat.
Maybe,
and
yeah,
you're
the
getting
gyroscope,
tossed around.
right?
Yeah, I mean, every time.
Accelerometer.
Because I wonder how those rings actually can sense when you've actually woken up, or when you've just rolled over but you're still asleep.
Yeah.
Because if I'm getting tossed around but I'm actually asleep, I don't know. It would be kind of interesting.
I think it would
to
be
see.
really cool. Yeah. There's no control group. You just like take the data, see what it says.
Yeah.
And then corroborate it with your own, like, oh yeah, that was the night of the storm. Or yeah, that was when this thing happened. And you can see like the chunk where you actually did get up.
Right. I never
There's
even
sometimes,
thought about that.
yeah, like I'm wearing mine and we're just watching a movie, like after dinner, and the next day, like, you got 12 hours of sleep. You went to bed at like 8:05. And I'm like, no, I didn't. Let's adjust that.
I was just watching TV.
Just so relaxed.
I was very calm. I was watching a drama.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely not a Guy Ritchie film.
No,
That
probably-
one, the heart rate starts pumping. Oh man. Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm still actually trying to sort out my sleeping patterns and stuff. It takes a long time to get back to
a point where I can sleep for like 7 hours.
Yeah.
Even when I'm on the boat tied to a dock or I'm in, a house somewhere, it usually, I want to say it probably takes about 3 months for me if I've been out at sea for over a month. And this last one, I think I was out there for 66 days or 75 days, something like that.
Mm-hmm. There's probably an already standardized way of doing this for ocean faring people. What time zone do you keep?
It's always changing, actually.
So it's like local, like you keep the like whatever time zone you're in. You're not, you don't anchor it to like northern Michigan or to Maine.
No, I will typically keep one little ship's clock. And for me, it's always been a little pocket watch that I actually ended up giving away to a family member. But I would keep that on, like, for instance, the first trip, it was on Gloucester time.
Right.
So it was just always stuck there. But no, I keep moving with it, mostly because you sort of want to stay in the proper navigation state.
Yeah.
Because if everything fails and you haven't been, say your GPS and all your electronics go out and you haven't really been on top of changing time zones and you're actually 3 time zones away, eventually you'll be able to use the sextant and the almanacs to be able to get your position, but it'll probably take a little bit longer and it'll be definitely a lot more frustrating to figure it out.
And if you get in that position, I'm sure that everything else is failing. Like, well, let's get the trusty sextant and the almanac in the midst of all this chaos and hang tight while I get a position fixed.
Right, as long as the sun is up and the conditions are good, all that stuff. So I don't know. It really just comes down to sort of old school proper seamanship of always doing that, and it's also kind of abstract too, because it's not like I cross a certain longitude and I'm like, oh, better time it's time to switch it over.
Right.
For me, it's just the sun came up at 4 this morning, so I think I need to put that clock a little further ahead. Yeah, because normally I'm moving east first, so the clock is always moving forward. And then, on the big trip around the world, I think I was probably changing time zone every 7 days or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I mean, it just sneaks up on you. That the crazy part is when you get to the international dateline. Yeah, because I really didn't know what I was supposed to do. And eventually, I believe it was March 10th, where I sort of realized that I was off by a day through just communicating with people from home. And so I ended up having March 10th twice. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Oh, man, I've been sort of in this different dimension.
As you go west, you're underneath the sun longer, right? Do you have like longer days, or you're not going that fast?
I'd like to think so, but I'm not going that fast. I mean, I'll move typically maybe 100, 150 miles if I'm really pushing it. And if you're going due west, that might give you 5 more minutes.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure what the calculation would be, but if you're on one of those boats it's like being on an airplane. If you're heading from New York to LA, that sunset was going to last you because you're doing 500 miles an hour.
Right.
So, well, and on the subject of boats, I'm going to get up and add some wood to that fire. But you want to talk about this lovely ship that you have?
I gotta find out.
So we got a bit of a quandary here, and this is actually something that does happen in the boating world quite often, where you have a family member that owns a boat that is sort of, that's their thing, and they pretty much do everything with it. And then in this case, is your father passed away a few years ago, and now you guys have a boat.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what do we do now? And it's gonna be kind of interesting because it's also in such an unusual place.
Yep.
That it's definitely going to be a little bit hard to figure out exactly how you can deal with it. Because one of the drawbacks to owning a boat is that no matter what, unless you have it parked on your property, it's going to cost you money constantly.
Yeah. I'm looking for some more details so I can speak a little bit more intelligently about it, it's a 58 Sparkman and Stevens old wooden boat. Like
Old wooden boat. Yeah,
racing boat.
it's definitely a classic. I mean, I've only seen a couple of pictures of it, but it's definitely it's one of those old beauties that would be a labor of love to own and operate.
And if I recall, it is very well. It's well maintained. The not the maintenance, but like the general upkeep and the initial complete rebuild of it. From the boat workshop up in Cedarville, Michigan, on the UP, they've done a really miraculous job. It is 58 fully restored 36-foot Sparkman Stevens mahogany, and just gorgeous. And I'll see if I can find some pictures and share them with you.
Were you able to get out and do a lot of sailing on it? No, not at all. Did you ever sail on it?
Yeah, we sailed on it a few times, but like the amount of money that Dad initially paid for and then put into it, we probably all could have gone down to the islands a few times and like chartered our own boat and then come back and had just an absolute blast of vacation.
Right.
Like lodging, food, air, the whole nine, all included.
Oh, I've done that calculation with my boat, and not so much my boat, but the trips that I go on.
Yeah,
because they invariably cost quite a bit of money. And
here's some pictures of the exterior, and then there's some interior photos as well. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, she is gorgeous. Holy smokes!
I got a photo album from the original owner based in Ann Arbor. We were going through that a little bit, and then Dad got it and had it all worked up by Murtaugh in Cedarville.
That's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
I know you said it was in 1958.
That's right.
So it's older than Sparrow. Sparrow's is 75. Wow, this is an old classic, man. Yeah, if it still looks like that, I think, I don't know. Part of me still sort of agrees that it's all about getting it out of the UP.
Yep.
Because that is one hard place for anybody to get to do just like a quick take a tour of it and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe we ought to sail it down to Chicago.
I am very down.
I wonder. I don't know. I'm probably the only Michigan sailor who's never done the Chicago to Mac or the other one that they have, but that'd be kind of a fun time to do it.
Yeah. And so this has done the Mackinac to Port Huron race before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
My brother Pat got in touch with the original owner in Ann Arbor, and they went through some of the history and discussed the provenance. And that whole goal of that call was to kind of, I think, get more proof to demonstrate where it came from and that it is what it says it is, what we say it says it is.
Yeah.
I think that call went really well. I haven't spoken to him really since, but I got a few like headlines of it. But yeah, it's a pretty impressive boat.
Yeah, no, it definitely looks beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, wooden boats are always a little scary to me just because I know how much work there to go into them and stuff. But, that's only because I'm always doing all the work myself. I mean, I don't know. But that whole prominence thing is pretty crazy when it comes to, because a lot of boats have, basically they've got designers. So somebody designed them. So in this case, it's Sparkman Stevens, but it's not like they have their warehouse where they're building them. That's just the design, and pretty much anybody can build them.
Gotcha. I don't know enough about this part of the world.
Right. Well, so, it can be a really high-end shipyard that builds it, or it can, be Joe Schmo with his little shop. And who knows which one's going to be better, but I mean, experts definitely would.
Is it analogous to like a designer putting up like 3D printing instructions somewhere on the internet and then me downloading it and running it on my own like 3D printer?
I would think so.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it really is, because it's you have the design, the idea, but then you've actually got the who's putting it together and all that. I mean,
right.
with the West Sail 32, those were all built out in the factory out on the West Coast, but they were also sold in two forms. So you could buy it as a completed boat, which I believe Sparrow was, and then you could also buy them as a kit boat. So you're basically buying the hull, and then I think all of the wood and everything that you needed for the interior, and then you would build it yourself.
Gotcha.
So a lot of West Sails have these really crazy custom interiors. They're all essentially the same because they're not huge boats, obviously. But I've been on a few where, you know, you look at them, you're like, wow, okay, so the guy did this. And you can really tell what the owner was sort of more interested in. Like my boat has a gigantic nav station. So it has a table that I can lay out giant world charts, completely flat, unrolled.
Right.
And most West Sails, the nav table is no bigger than this little coffee table.
Gotcha.
And so I wouldn't, like, if I wanted to use my charts on that,
You wouldn't be able to just
they'd be
falling
folded
over.
3 times.
Yeah.
And so, and I've always hated that, but it's, you know, when I'm out at sea, I'm doing these big trips. And so I got to have that. And the other one is that I have a booth table set up so that 4 people could sit and like have dinner.
Cool.
And that's just something that I've always enjoyed, you know, sitting around in there with a bunch of people, and you get the little hanging light.
Yeah.
Because I always love that scene in Jaws where they're having a couple of drinks around the dinner table right before the shark starts pounding the crap out of the boat.
Here's the interior of Annalise.
Let's see. Oh, wow, that's cool. Yeah, that's pretty. That's real pretty. I love the arch beams and stuff.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and that's a very, very traditional layout with, you know, you've got the settee, which is sort of the couch, and then the nice little table there that sort of folds up, and then it looks like you've got a little, I guess that'd be a pilot cabin or something like that. Oh, that's cool, man. Boy, it's a lot of wood. A lot of wood. Scares me, that stuff. But I've had to deal with like the cap rail on my boat. Right now, the big project is the Bowsprit, which is all wood. It's 3 layered things coming together, and I've taken it completely apart. And the only problem was I took it apart. I'm down in South Carolina, and we don't have a heated workshop. So to do all the epoxy and the varnishing and everything correctly, it can't be done when it's 35 degrees.
Right.
So I figured, you know what? I'll go up to Michigan, hang out up here,
Love it.
get some people in, and
It's a gorgeous day outside, too.
dude,
I mean, it's 8 degrees Fahrenheit, but there's sun with a little bit of clouds, and there's like, what? What do you think? That's a foot of snow?
easily, and that's after it rained all Wednesday.
Yeah. And it's going to snow more tonight.
It should, yeah. And then I did see there's some sort of winter weather warning coming up on this weekend. So who
Great.
knows? Maybe you might be flying out, bud.
Snowed in. Love to. I mean, we got enough firewood and turkey and ham
I think we'll be all right.
and pasta.
If we can make it to the liquor store and get some more wine, I think
I think we'll be okay.
Although we could raid the little cellar here, but who knows? Who knows?
I would never do that. I would never do that to whoever might be listening.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure my mom will listen to this. Well, it would be fun, man.
Yeah.
Get out there on the slopes tonight. I've always loved night skiing. It definitely, there's just something about doing that out there. And I mean, I guess the same for me with sailing too. I've always liked night sailing. I mean, we used to go on Walloon, and nighttime was always the best.
Those are some of my favorite memories is going on with like you and Adam night sailing. And then one night, I think we were in the West Arm, and the wind completely died, and we put out some like oars
Yeah.
from the cabin and started like actually paddling, and we took turns laying down on the bow like paddling.
Moving at 0.2 of a knot. So that would have been on a Pearson Ensign, so 22 feet long. And oh man, yeah, the number of times we've been becalmed out there. And it's funny because as the years went on, you start to sort of become a little smarter to the weather patterns.
Yeah,
And
you'd hope so at least.
yeah, I mean, and it ended up that anytime we ever tried to go out when the winds were coming from the north, it always ended up dying around midnight.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of times learning that.
Yep.
There was one where Patrick Pickle and I went out, and we got stuck almost all the way at the far end, and it took us, I think, 4 hours to paddle back.
Yep.
And, having an engine on that or something like that would have probably been pretty helpful too. But we have one on the boat now. And I remember the last time I had to use it, I ended up running out of fuel. I was like, one of these days I'm going to get this right.
Best laid plans.
Oh, man. Well, our fire's gone out.
Yeah, we'll take care of that later.
And I can feel it. Well, what else you want to talk about as we're shooting from the hip?
I don't know, man. I saw the logs from before. I haven't read them or anything, but as I was walking by them and looking through them, you said you do that every like 2 or 3 days.
The ship's logs.
Yeah.
No, so I have right now in the corner of this room, I have a little table set up because I'm working on this book about the doldrums, and so I have all the old ship's log books, and those are filled in. Typically, I do it every 6 hours.
Every 6 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
So each day we'll have 4 different entries on it. And then if something else happens out of the ordinary or something like that.
Something breaks or...
Yeah, that always gets logged in there and such. But yeah, so, that's probably one of the nicest parts about writing any sort of book about sailing as far as actually going out and doing it, because you have these records that you can keep going back to.
Yeah.
And, just check them out. And it's funny because you forget stuff. It's a lot like just a journal.
Right.
And I have that accompanying it as well. But I'm essentially trying to recreate a trip across the doldrums through telling stories that relate to the different feelings on that sort of roller coaster ride getting through. So normally you're sort of excited when you get down to the doldrums, and then usually you get either becalmed or you get flattened by a big squall. And so your morale sort of drops a little bit, and then you get really becalmed, and then I'll tell stories about that, and then you start to break free, but there's always this false hope of it, and then you get becalmed again, and then you get like really depressed. And it's kind of this really interesting place of just what I've always found. It's a place of balance, and it's balance in 2 very big extremes where it's either completely flat calm and clear skies with maybe big, fluffy, beautiful, kind-looking clouds. And then the next day, it's blowing 30 knots. It's raining on you. There's lightning striking all around. And then it'll go back to the other way again. And it sort of does that back and forth. It's just such an unusual place. And I've always really loved and hated it. But it's that whole idea of this balance right there pretty much on the center line of our planet.
Yeah.
And it's a strange place, and not a lot of people venture out that far to go and see it. And I've been fortunate enough to experience it in a lot of different seasons of the years. I mean, the one trip, which was pretty exceptional, was to be down in the doldrums in September, when basically that's the cooking pot for the hurricanes.
Because everything's coming off of Africa, right?
Yeah,
and heading towards the Caribbean.
Yeah, you typically have two areas where the hurricanes in the North Atlantic form. Down in the Gulf, because that's just tons of hot water, and then coming off of Africa. And typically the ones off of Africa start as big storm cells in the Congo and work their way out. And if the surface level water is, I believe, 84 degrees or higher, which it almost always is now in that time of year, then that will just accelerate. And as soon as it starts to spin, then you've got yourself a hurricane.
Wow.
And they're, they've got a couple thousand miles to travel before they even reach the Caribbean. But it sort of depends on where they're forming, because they almost always are going to start turning north eventually. Some do, some don't. Some of them meander a little bit, but the typical path is come a good way across the Atlantic and then start sweeping north.
Right.
I think like poor Bermuda is like right in the middle of the perfect normal path of hurricanes. And if you've ever been out there, they've adapted to it I think, better than any other place in the Atlantic. They've built everything super tough so that it's sort of like a hurricane comes and they just close the storm shutters.
Right.
I don't think there's any like telephone poles and things like that. I don't think they even.
Is it all underground?
I'm pretty sure they just buckled it down because they literally get hit every year.
Yeah.
So
at some point you're like,
yeah, it's like, all right, guys, let's just make it really, really tough because
Right.
it'd be and it's in a small island, so it's doable compared to. Florida.
Right.
It's going to be pretty hard to buckle Florida down. Nobody buckles Florida down. And I can say that because my bro lives there.
Well, and you'll also tell me about how I remember hearing for the first time that you ran into whatever the weather was down there, and you're getting sand from Africa
the Sahara Dust
in your boat. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is mind-boggling to me. Who doesn't understand? I mean, I've never researched weather patterns or global phenomenon like that, and so hearing that, I did like a triple take. I'm like, wait a second, let me do the math there.
Like the sand is out there. Well, believe it or not, the sand reaches the Caribbean.
That was going to be what I was going to ask after this.
Yeah. So if there's different sort of infrared websites that show the satellite footage of, I don't know if it's infrared that shows it or not, but basically just these big plumes of Sahara dust will rock off of that continent, and then they'll make their way all the way to the Caribbean where, we'd be working in the British Virgin Islands, and it'd be like a hazy day as if you were in like Los Angeles or something.
Wow.
And it's all just Sahara dust. I mean, we also were affected by Montserrat, which is an island about halfway down the chain that's very active volcano. I think I can't remember what year it was. I think it was either in the 90s or in the 2000s when it buried one of their towns, like a real volcano, like literally lava just burying places.
Yeah.
But you can always smell it. I've sailed past it a bunch of times, and it's always still active for sure.
Yeah, that's what. There's a wine from Sicily, and Mount Etna is still a very active volcano.
Oh,
and it
yeah,
explodes like frequently, like more than you and I would think a volcano would explode, like 1 or 2 times a year, I think.
Really?
Maybe less frequently than that, but still, like every it feels like all the time. I'll pull up, the news, and it knows that I search for wine and stuff. So it's keyword. But every once in a while, I'll be like, "Yep, Etna exploded again." There's like, the giant lava shooting out of the thing, coming down the mountain, and you get to see these gorgeous photos of like this. It's at night. And it's like the mountain in the background, all the super hot orange lava coming down, and then the lights of the town just underneath it.
That to me just sounds absolutely insane. I grew up in northern Michigan, which is probably one of the most
pretty tame
steady,
volcano-wise.
Yeah, well, we don't get hurricanes. We rarely get tornadoes because of all the hills and the water. The only thing that we get that we've just become so accustomed to is, blizzards in the wintertime. And maybe that's the key that I'm not noticing is that, people down in the Caribbean, they just get used to the hurricanes.
Yeah.
People in, out west get used to the droughts and all that. But I don't know. I've always I never thought, oh man, I'd like to move down to Florida. The first thing I think of is, well, what about the hurricanes, man? You lose your whole house.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's like the Eskimos have like 28 words for snow. Because there's like all the different types of snow.
And it's the Inuit.
Is it the Inuit? Excuse me.
We don't do racism.
I apologize. That's my... I just remember from Out Cold. That's...
Oh, yeah, right. God. Well, I'll tell you, because we are going night skiing tonight, we do have to watch a ski movie today.
I think we should watch Out Cold.
To get pumped up.
Yeah.
That's an old one.
I know. It's one of my
Cold,
favorites.
Ski Patrol. Ski Patrol 2 is kind of a joke.
We already watched Hot Tub Time Machine.
Hot Tub Time Machine, yeah. Well, you watched, 3 minutes of it and then
I
fell
watched,
asleep?
Yeah, I got into when they got to Cave Owls. and then I woke up with Motley Lou at the end.
It's such a good movie. I remember, I think it was Adam told me about it, and we sat down and watched it, and I'm just thinking, what stupid movie? Hot Tub Time Machine?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
And within about 10 minutes, I was like, this is great.
I'm
in for a good ride.
I think just at the beginning, John Cusack moving through his house is a pretty dramatic Like that's a very well acted little scene at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
When he comes home and all of his stuff is gone, he's got the little red stickers.
The dots.
Like the photography and the movement of the camera and the way he's looking around and the way that it's synced perfectly to the voicemail that he was listening to. And he like kind of snorts up his beer when she realizes the TV's gone. And then it cuts to him like sitting in the chair just like this. And he's got the red sticker on his forehead.
That's pretty good.
Or he like looks at the note and just throws it away and keeps like there's a quality in that scene, and then 10 minutes later, it's like the montage in the hot tub with like the chipmunk and the guy in the bear costume, and it's a ridiculous movie, but I really do. I love it.
It's fun. Well, and
Sebastian Stan is the ski patrol guy.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Who was later in Endgame, Marvel's The Avengers Endgame, and then they reference Hot Tub Time Machine as one of the movies that got time travel wrong.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. There's that whole theory about like, there's this sort of universe that a lot of these movies live in.
Yeah.
And they're all interconnected this way, that way. I know with a lot of, obviously with the Marvel stuff.
Yeah, like Sebastian Stan is an actor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because Hot Tub Time Machine exists.
Yeah.
And then he's also like, wow, the Winter Soldier looks a lot like this actor, Sebastian Stan, that was in the Hot Tub Time Machine, doesn't he? Like, you can think about stuff like that sometimes.
Right.
It's a fun rabbit hole to go down.
Well, and they've been doing that, filmmakers have been doing that sort of stuff for a long time, hinting at other movies. And
Quentin Tarantino has like this Tarantino verse.
Yeah.
Which has a lot of like same brands. Kevin Smith with like Mallrats and Chasing Amy, you'll see like, what is the fast food? It's like Moody's or Movies.
Oh, yeah.
He's got, and like the brand of cigarettes.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Well, because the one about the Catholic Church that they did,
Dogma.
Yeah, that was sort of the equivalent of Disney World or Mickey and stuff. It was Moody, or I don't know.
It's either Moody's or Moobies. It's something like that.
Yeah,
with the big cow.
It's the golden
cow.
False idol.
Yeah, it's a golden calf.
Oh man, it's creative, man. It's very, very creative. That stuff. So yeah, we'll definitely have to get amped up for that. I can't wait. And then I don't know, man. We've got the rest of the weekend. I'll tell you, it's just been nice to have people around.
Yeah.
It's been a lonely ride since October, and then getting back to land was nice.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people down at the marina that I keep the boat at, so that was very cool. But then as soon as that temperature starts plunging and people are sort of hiding in their boats, myself included, I don't know, that sort of loneliness and everything goes in. I mean, my head is still all just messed up, but I don't know. I've talked about that enough on this podcast where people are probably pretty sick of it, but I am definitely making the turn for the better. I just still gotta start buckling down and getting back in shape. That's for sure.
We just carbo loaded with all that pasta last night. We're probably gonna have more of it tonight when we get home.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be my last hurrah, I think, as far as just eating just really good, lots of food, and having plenty of it.
Well, and luckily the food that we were making, it's not bad.
Oh no, it's not bad. It's not like we're popping off to Mickey D's.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I haven't breached that wall yet. Hope I don't, but
it's like the balance of like in my apartment in Brooklyn, I walk. I mean, sometimes when I don't leave the apartment, I walk like 800 steps. Like there's no reason because I go from my bed
in an entire day.
I mean, it's probably more than that, but not much. Because all I do is I go from my bedroom to like make some coffee in the kitchen. And I walk to my like little living room table where I have my work computer, and I just sit there and work. Wow. And then I'll get up and I'll like make some more coffee or make some tea or grab a glass of water, and then I go back and keep working.
And you don't try and fit in some sort of little exercise routine?
I have a calendar.
And let's be honest here.
No, I do. I can show you on my Google Calendar at 11:15. I have a calendar reminder every day, Monday through Friday, that says walk outside for like 15 minutes. Verbatim, that's what it says. And every day, like clockwork, someone on my team will set a meeting. It's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's 1,000% their job and my job to take it.
Yeah.
But they'll set it on my calendar and they're like, "Did you mean to decline the meeting that I just sent?" I'm like, "Oh no, that's just a recurring reminder." to go outside and get some sunlight.
I need
Ignore
to be
that.
healthy. I need vitamin D and I need exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
I need my heart rate to
and
go
every day,
above.
it's like, nope, not today. Maybe I'll try it again tomorrow.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's difficult sometimes to get out. Francesca and I have really enjoyed cooking a lot more at home. We always have. But when you can't really go out to restaurants or everything's becoming so much more expensive, what would we rather do? Like do a little bit of thinking ahead of time and then run an errand to get some groceries and then come home and cook it. I also don't, because I don't have to go to work like in an office.
Yeah.
I can stay home and like start braising short ribs at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah. Wow.
It doesn't take long to set up. It's like, in my what would have been normally like a lunch break, I'll take that half hour, dice up some vegetables, sear some meat, throw in some stock, and then by the time I'm done, right back to work, and it goes for like 4 or 5 hours. So it's easy to do.
Yeah. No, well, and that makes it. It is. Yeah. That's definitely one of the perks. I think a few people that I know have told me is, since they've no longer needed to go into the office, and it doesn't look like a lot of them will ever even go back to the office because I think some places have found that they're able to run their business for the most part, at least in some departments, from people, satellites at home,
Yep.
Just crazy. It's crazy to think of, but.
Although I do miss the dynamic of going to an office and having this like a social element in my life.
Well, because before you worked with these guys, you were working in a restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I've been working, there was a stint in grad school where even then I was working at the hotel bar. But even then I was surrounded by, whether it was classmates or other like restaurant, not just like obviously people that I worked with at the restaurant, but the industry broadly, wherever you're working, is also really supportive.
Yeah.
And we go to each other's restaurants and we get together and like, in my case, it was lots of blind tasting groups and wine classes, and then distributors and reps would have these other classes that you were invited to. So you got to see a lot of the same people, and the bonds within the industry itself is really great. Mm-hmm. And then when I got an office job, I started going to the office every day. There's obviously the sales team, which I'm a part of, but there's also the members of these other teams, design, marketing.
And they're all there as well.
And they're all there as well. So
you get this sort of networking, social.
Totally.
I guess I almost have to say old school social interaction.
Yeah.
Because the new school social interaction, in a lot of ways, it just has a screen in front of it, but you're still, staring at a person. Like,
yeah.
At least we have that. Can you imagine if this whole thing happened and we still it was analog telephones?
Yeah, it'd be much more difficult.
It would definitely
like 1918.
be more yeah, right.
Like 1718 Spanish flu. I think that the company that I'm at has done a really great job of, like, we have, like, my larger team has a meeting once every 2 weeks, and it's like with members of like the corporate leadership, the sales managers, everyone that's a sales rep, and everyone that's like a development person. So it's like 3 or 4 pages of like little faces in Zoom now. And then there's like the smaller teams within that get them much more regularly. And I think we've done a really great job of being, not creative, that's the wrong word, but the channels that we have open to us, especially in my case, because I'm so far removed, all the rest of everyone is in Chicago. There's one other rep in New York City, and it's me.
Oh, okay. So it's still, you're working for the same company from Chicago.
Yeah.
You moved to New York.
Yeah.
And that's something that in the past you would have had to be like, well, this is it. Got to move on.
Yeah, it was a great transition again. Like, they were very supportive. It just coincided with a global pandemic. So
yeah, right.
So something, but luckily, like, I became not the only, like, it wasn't just we got to deal with Jerome, who's now working from home. It's everyone is working from home.
Did they shut down their offices and get rid of them?
So they shut down the offices for a few weeks. I wasn't involved in these conversations. I'm trying to remember, and I don't want to speak out of turn. But if I recall correctly, they shut it down for a few weeks. They tried to open on like a schedule, like Mondays and Wednesdays, these teams would come in. Tuesdays and Thursdays, these teams would come in, because there is, outside of like the social dynamic, there is something to be said about the company that has like a design team and a marketing team, and a lot of the ideas that come out of that are like effective and successful happen in person, just by being around people and having like meetings and getting together. And you lose that when everyone, like, you can't just have Zoom on 9 hours a day, like in the corner of your
I know
apartment.
people that have to do that, and I applaud their effort to just stay the course, because you can see them physically drained at the end of the day, because they've just been dealing with that sort of interaction.
Yeah, and that's me. Like, that's all I got. I've been doing some in-person meetings with some restaurants around New York City, but generally 100% of the internal like work
Is
calls
all right there.
and like 90% now of the restaurant calls that I have are all done over Zoom.
All of them.
Or on the
Golly.
phone. Yeah. So the office tried to open a few times, but with talk, it's a very exciting time for the company. We were acquired by Squarespace last spring. And the company itself has grown so much that we outgrew the offices that we had.
Oh, really?
So we're getting a new office, and it's supposed to be completed in like April.
Oh,
and that's
very
going to
cool.
be able to fit everybody.
And that's in Chicago?
Yep, that's
Okay.
in Chicago.
Wow.
So even if like it was open tomorrow, if like the thing disappeared and everything went back to normal tomorrow, I don't know if Talk would have an office to go back to at the moment, because it's not completed.
We're getting there.
Yeah, and it's really exciting. It's going to be. I've seen some renderings. It looks gorgeous. I'm going to fly back for it to see the opening of it. So I can't wait.
But you two will always be out there in New York, right?
Yeah,
Pretty much that's your place.
yeah.
That's
At least for now. For the next, we re-signed our lease for the next year and a half. So we're definitely in New York City for the next year and a half.
Nice. Oh, well, that's very cool, man.
Yeah. And then after that, like, we love the neighborhood. Our apartment's great. I think.
Is it pretty safe?
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah. Where we live it's very safe.
There's not a lot of crazy people shouting and screaming when you get out on the street?
There are definitely still crazy people that are shouting.
But
and
you just
screaming.
ignore them,
Yeah,
right?
they're not dangerous, really.
Somebody, I can't remember what, I saw it somewhere, but they said that's how you know a real New Yorker is if the crazy person starts shouting, a real New Yorker doesn't even look. But if you're from out of town, you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, generally.
I'm
not a New Yorker.
Right. But you've spent years there.
From Indiana, you know,
Right.
lived in Colorado. I've lived in New York for a minute now, but I think, yeah, to some extent, when those things happen and I'm on like a phone call, I'll have to I just apologize and close the window. It's not like, oh my gosh, what's going on outside? It's like, I'm so sorry. Hang on just one moment. And I close
Sorry,
it
we got a
back.
crazy down there at 2 o'clock.
Yeah. No, it's really safe, and the community itself around us is just getting like more great restaurants are opening, and more like little there's a new wine shop, there's a new bakery, things like that are kind of opening more and more.
Yeah.
So in my head, there weren't like closed storefronts to begin with. Some businesses closed, but it's not like this dilapidated street.
Yeah.
It's the buildings are shorter. They're all brownstones, so the streets are just lined with these 3-floor plus little garden level brownstone. So instead of when we lived in the East Village or anywhere else in Manhattan, and you couldn't really see the sky because of all the buildings, now it can be gorgeous outside, and we get sunsets from the living room windows, and it's really, really pretty.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I always sort of envisioned it. If you lived in Manhattan, you were just in the chaos, and that's kind of part of the appeal. Is that I mean, it's wall-to-wall buildings. There's just stuff everywhere.
Yeah, there are probably varying degrees of it. Like, I never lived in a very a luxury high rise where you can be removed from it. Like,
where you can be above all of it.
exactly, and
looking
the
down on
doorman brings you your packages and all that stuff.
Right.
I never really had anything like that. I imagine that is one really great escape. And you can probably go, if you lived in a building like that, to like the parking garage downtown, and then get in your Uber or your car, drive to wherever you're going, get out, and you just ignore all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a few subway stops that are really close to us, like 2 blocks walking distance, and that takes us pretty much anywhere in Manhattan that we need to go.
Is the subway scary?
No, it's fine.
I must sound like the biggest wimp in the world, but it's just, I'm just not used to that stuff. I wouldn't say I have trouble in an airport with that many people, but I think that's only because airports are one of the few places that people act a certain way in an airport. You have to. So you can't just be doing whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, there's rules there.
I think there's also like the price to entry is a couple $100. You have to go through security.
Yeah, it's not like people go and hang out in airports anymore when they're not flying anymore.
Right.
I do remember when you used to be able to go in and
you just go right to the gate.
At the gate and stuff. Yeah.
No, I think there's some like kind of qualifying there that can be helpful for managing the riffraff.
The troubled riffraff.
The subways can be like dangerous. You kind of do have to be like aware. I probably wouldn't take it, if I got blackout at 3 a.m. going home.
Yeah, then it's like, give me a cab.
Yeah, something like that. And luckily I don't do that. That part of my life is
yeah, you're old enough now, right?
But no, I mean they can be dangerous. I wouldn't tune out the rest of the world if I'm on the subway, and I don't.
Yeah.
I'll have little AirPods in or headphones, but they won't be on noise canceling really. Just again for some awareness.
Well, aren't there? I'd always heard stories too of people. I guess you would call them like street performers that would be on the subway and they'd be playing something terrible so that people would pay them to stop and move to the next car.
I haven't seen that strategy. No, I think a lot of and you'll see it, especially now, I don't see as many performers in the cars, like in the actual subway cars anymore. But I don't even know if they ever really left, but they're still very much in like the larger subway stations, like Union Square. It's like a convergence of all these different lines. And so the actual space where commuters are walking from one platform to another, they're very big and very open. So you'll get like bucket drummers or someone that has like pop songs, instrumental versions, and they'll be blasting it through an amp and like trying to sing, or like violinists and stuff. So it can be pretty cool.
Yeah,
there's a lot of great talent. Unfortunately, most of the people that are going through there are like on their way to somewhere else.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of stopping and like, I gotta listen. But it is, I mean, you would think if you're trying to get over some fear of performing in front of people, that'd be a heck of a good way to do it.
And it costs like $2 to get through the subway, and
it's warm.
Yeah, and it's warm.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's not too bad.
And you're totally right too. You could do the same thing in like Madison Square Park and Union Square. Like you'll see performers just they'll bring their amp, their little setup, and if it's like a guitar or a microphone or whatever, and they'll perform there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's even common when I was in Boulder, like right down Pearl Street. You'll get like people just pull out a guitar, put the case right in front of them, and just start playing music and kind of see what happens. Because you're totally right. I think sometimes it is about an income and revenue and dollars, and other times it's like playing in front of people petrifies me.
Yeah.
How do I get over it? It's risk free, man. You're not going to run into people. There's not going to be anyone judging you. They're all thinking about themselves.
Well, the girl who sings the intro to this podcast, Adrienne, she lived down in New Orleans for years.
Yeah.
And that's what she did. She had her spot that she picked out and she played music. And
that's awesome.
She does a lot of other stuff as well, like yoga classes and things. But that was when she first got down there, that was the game plan. She was like, I just want to go and she calls it busking. I think that's the proper term.
I think you're right. Yeah, that sounds to me. I wouldn't have known that, but when you said it, I was like, oh yeah, I recognize that.
It's like one of those words like doldrums. People are like, I know that word, but I don't know what it's about. That's what my book is going to tell them.
I love it. I love it.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. Let's pause this for now and get this fire rolling. I could probably use a little cup of coffee. But we are already at an hour, believe it or not. So we can.
And we haven't really talked about wine at all.
I know.
It's been amazing.
We can cut in. I'll tell you what. Well, let's just in case, I just want to say thanks for coming on the podcast again. You're now a regular.
I love it.
So you've joined the ranks of Sven.
Yes.
Yeah, which is
that's lauded. That's some pretty serious territory.
Lofty. Yeah, I think he's on. I want to say he's done 3. I can't remember. He gets so excited. I love it. Absolutely love it. Good old Sven.
Well, I feel like every time I talk to people, like especially with family, it's very easy for me to just fall into like the talking about wine. Like Andy Noel, Bill and Jane's Andy Noel.
Yeah.
We text a lot about like wine and food and cooking and things like that. But then I also text him all the time like physical therapy questions. Like, hey, is this supposed to be happening? Or stuff like that. And I don't want to just fall into the trap of always talking to Andy if like my muscles are sore.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
But he's an expert.
No, I know.
And if he had questions about wine, I would want him to call me.
Right.
I want family to call me about wine.
Well, I love it when they call me about sailing. That's for sure. But I understand it completely. I mean, there are definitely times I know when I go to social events or things like that, and I'm invited from somebody else, and they're sort of bringing me there. I always nowadays sort of have to pull them aside and be like, listen, can you just not introduce me as like the guy who sailed around the world?
Yeah,
because you can just say I'm a sailor. That's fine. Like I'll get into it. But sometimes when people say that, instantly there's about 10 questions that come out.
Yeah.
And that's the first hour, and it's like, oh, come on, we don't need to just kickstart it right away. But
yeah, we went to the opening of a little small wine bar, like last week, a few days, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago now, I guess. And one of the industry people that I kind of known tangentially, I knew his brother was a former boss of mine, boss's boss. He was up there, and they're all super nice people. He owns a little pizzeria, really amazing pizza. Mm-hmm. Like well-regarded, award-winning, not like your casual. It is a casual corner spot, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
And I had questions about how he makes pizza, and I'm sure it's the questions he got all the time.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad because I'm sitting here trying to like come up with something more creative to ask him, but I'm very curious, like, what wood does he use? What are the different temperature zones inside the oven? Like, how important is this? And I'm sure he's sitting there like, dude, I do this all day, every day.
Break.
Can we talk about like the Sonic and Hedgehog movie or something like that? and I did used to work at a pizzeria a long time ago, so it only fits 3 pizzas in the oven. It's wood burning. It's like 900 degrees in there. It takes a minute and a half to cook these things. And the guys who were making it were always moving them around.
Yeah,
because you'd put it on the surface, and the surface would instantly cool because the dough was colder. And
so you go like
you constantly, and then like up to so you don't want the bottom to burn before the top has a chance to cook fully. So you kind of pick it up on the peel and kind of hold it aloft so the top has a chance to kind of like melt and cook before the bottom starts to scald. And it's this constant game. And on like a busy dinner service on a Saturday night,
like 6 pizzas in there.
Oh, it's a whole. And there's a capacity too, because you can't. If one table gets 6 pizzas, that one table's food is going to be cooked all at the exact same time.
Yeah.
There's not roast chicken and steak and fish that they could get. It is 100% pizza. And if one of those pizzas gets messed up, you got 5 people get dinner?
Yeah, right.
And then the other one has to wait. So it's this constant magic act. It's amazing what these guys can do.
It is. It's pretty cool, man.
And the only thing I would ask is like, how does it work? And he's like, man, this is my night off.
Yeah, right. just drop
I felt terrible, but it's the people. This is something that we could talk about when we get back on. And I think I mentioned this to you the other day. The experts in different fields than mine, the people who use like jargon and who know things down pat, are fascinating to me.
Oh yeah. You can sit down with somebody, even in any realm. I mean, it's fascinating when I get to sit down with the old man, and he takes me through, what it's like to do the estimating and stuff for a big plumbing project.
Yeah,
it's like holy cow, and he just because he's done it his whole life, so he knows every in and out of it, and I don't know. It is pretty cool, and I think that's one of the fun things about these podcasts is that I get to sit down, and as much as I would like to, I guess I would think that if I'm going to have Jerome on, I better have we better just be talking about wine because that's all he knows.
Yeah,
and it's not like that. I think it's far more interesting, like you're saying, is maybe you dabble in it here and there, and we've already done that with the first one,
right.
But I think it's really interesting just getting to know the people behind their, maybe not their profession, but their passion and what they're really good at it. So it's always fun just to chat, and you never know where it goes. Could be talking about Hot Tub Time Machine again
for like 20 minutes.
All right, so we'll pause here and hopefully we'll come back.
Going.
All right,
man.
All right, and we are back after a little break for a little lunch. So we're just going to wrap things up. And actually, so Jerome, I was thinking about it, and I think I need to sort of put people on the spot sometimes.
Okay.
And in my life, ever since I got into sort of the adventuring sort of stuff, a lot of those things have to be done over a period of years. So I remember when I finished the Appalachian Trail, I needed to come up with my game plan for, going around the world.
Right.
And it ended up being a 5-year plan. And it was really the first time I had ever considered sort of life in that way. If that makes any sense. And I remember, at least I remember from movies and stuff, the guidance counselor saying, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah.
But that's exactly what I'm going to ask you right now.
Or like job interviews.
Well, yeah, just about. So what do you see coming down the pipeline for the next 5 years? You got any goals?
No.
Whoa, I'm catching him right off guard.
Yeah, no. So,
But you've got some big things coming up too.
well, the last decade has been kind of about how to set myself up for whatever the next thing is, without an actual goal of what the next thing looks like or what it could be. Yeah. When I moved to Boulder, I had been working at this little brew pub in Indianapolis, and I was also a history major from a little liberal arts school. So it's like you can do anything, but also there's no path. It's not like I went pre-med or I
going for the bars.
I didn't take the LSAT. So it's like you can be a teacher or you can work in restaurants. And I got to Boulder with the girl that I was dating at the time. She was going to law school, and my goal there was to continue working in hospitality. My dad owned the fishing lodge in Canada. I'd be working at this brew pub. I was kind of interested in making beer. This could be kind of cool. And I found Frosca Food and Wine, I think in like Craigslist, and I read about it and did some more research about the people that were that opened that restaurant and where they came from, and I was like, these are the guys that I want to work for.
Yeah.
And so I finally got there, and I'm really happy that the manager at the time looked at me, and there's this little questionnaire about, to kind of gauge the experience level that someone has to work at Frosca. And it's not like you have to have a sommelier degree or any kind of certificate or anything to work there, but it's helpful to know some like general information.
Yeah.
And there's this questionnaire, and it asks about like what regions of Italy do you know, and name 3 Italian white varieties of wine. I'm like, I couldn't answer these if I had all day. Like I didn't know anything about wine at the time. Didn't really know anything about food at that level. But I guess I interviewed well with the manager who kind of like chatted with me, and they were hiring. It's like, well, would you consider taking a job at here? And because it was Frosca Food and Wine, and then right next door, about 8 months before, they'd opened Pizzeria Locale, which they shared a kitchen, but they're very different. Frosca Food and Wine is generally a prefix menu. It's like 4 courses. They have like guest chef events. They have an amazing wine cellar. It's run by a master sommelier, and his partner's a chef, and they came from the French Laundry in California. So the standards are very high.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, Pizzeria Locale is a pizzeria.
Yeah,
it's delicious. The food's insane. The attention to detail is really good. The flavor profile is good, but it's very specific Neapolitan style pizza. The oven was made in Italy, and they have like wine on tap.
Yeah,
It's not fine dining, but it is run with fine dining standards. So I thought that was exactly where I wanted to be. Instead of wearing, I think at the time it was brown. I think it was brown pants. I can't remember what they had at Frosca, but it's like a long apron and a nice starched dress shirt. And at Locale, we wore like a polo and black jeans.
Yeah.
Like black denim
and
like
casual.
sneakers. Yeah. But again, really high focus on doing things the right way. Between the process, the ingredients, and the hospitality, and cleaning up, and like every aspect of it, you were expected to do it the right way.
Yeah.
If no one was looking, or if they were,
Right.
And I kind of took that to heart. I took it really seriously. So I was very lucky to kind of walk in the day that I did and get a job, and I was there for a few years, and then I kind of felt my time in Boulder was wrapping up. Dad was, very encouraging to look at Cornell for grad school, and I kind of kept pushing him off and off and off, and then I was like, actually, this might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Because you start to learn more about the industry, and you realize how many people have gone through the hotel school at Cornell and who have emerged to be amazing restaurateurs, operators, business people. And they're people that I genuinely did look up to. So I looked more into that, and I decided if I'm going to leave Boulder, I either do what I'm doing in Boulder, but in like another city like Chicago, or Cornell, I get accepted there. I wasn't applying in mass to different hospitality programs. It was just, if I get into Cornell, I'll go there. If not, I'll just go to Chicago and keep doing what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Because the idea was whatever the next thing was would set me up for the thing that came after, right? So I worked at Pizza Locale for a few years. I passed the certified exam through the Court of Master Sommeliers, which was really cool. So I kind of had this wine, food, and beverage track. I had zero business experience.
Yeah.
I hadn't opened Excel ever.
There's a lot of blocks.
Exactly.
Spreadsheet.
There'd be no reason for me to do it. I took an accounting class in college. It was basically like how to read a 10K.
Yeah.
But that was it. So I thought that going to the hotel school would get me connected directly to the industry, to the level of the industry of which I wanted to be a part of. And I could probably learn something about how to run a business. And both those things really happened at Cornell. It was awesome. So again, knowing kind of the alumni and the network that came out of that school, I was like, well, how is this going to set me up for the next thing? And with Cornell on my resume and the networking, I was able to get plugged into Danny Meyer's restaurant group, Union Square Hospitality in New York. And again, kind of right place, right time. Fortunate enough that one of the restaurants, one of his newer restaurants was hiring a sommelier, and I was able to get that job. And okay, now I've had a sommelier job in New York City. Like that's kind of an important thing that I didn't take it for granted, but I didn't recognize. My boss actually had to tell me, like, no, you're a sommelier in New York. This is not a small deal.
Yeah. You're a select small group of people that have an expertise that's pretty up there.
And I learned so much. Like there's another person at USHG that really, everyone really did try to focus the wine program as you're running a business within a business. Like wine directors have a small staff of sommeliers at the time.
Yeah.
You were in charge of ordering and in charge of pricing and in charge of selling and in charge of, building out the wine list and making sure that you have enough wines for everybody that wants to spend money on wine. If it's like a first date and you don't know anything about wine, there should be a bottle for you. If you're a serious collector and you don't mind spending $500 or $600 on one bottle, there's a bottle for you. So you have to be able to not leave money on the table, but also have it be approachable. And there's a ton of other dynamics, running an inventory, making sure that everything's up to date. There's no like fraud and waste and abuse, and all of this stuff was really important. It was a crash course in that over 2 years with Union Square.
But it did. I'm definitely getting that sense of it was just you're sort of setting yourself up, and then the next thing came.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, so there really was never. It wasn't 5 years ago, you were like, dang, I really just want to be a somm in New York.
Yeah. And I think for me, that's worked well and kind of similar to the sommelier profession itself. From my perspective, this isn't everyone's experience, but for me, it very much allowed me to have structure, but a lot of freedom and white space within that structure. When I was at Pizza Locale, it was very easy for me to look up to the owner, Bobby Stuckey, who's an MS. I think I mentioned him on the podcast last time and was like, I want to be like him.
Yeah.
That's the guy I want to be like. Because at the time, it's very easy to be like, oh, I've been bartending here for about a year. Then I'll go bartend down at that restaurant for a little while. And then I might move and then like bartend around that town. Like, no, sommeliering had like the court with tests that you could pass, or you can go into like wine production and you can, there's a different like sommelier organization that really focus on viticulture and vinification. You can go
a few branches basically.
Yeah, and you can go on like the sales side or importing and distribution, and so there's a lot of white space within this industry. Same as everyone, I just didn't know about it until I actually got there.
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right. It wasn't like in 5 years, I want to pass the advanced. Or in 5 years, I want MS behind my name. I want to open a restaurant. It was nothing like that, for better or worse, because it did give me a lot of flexibility. By the time I was finishing up at USHG, again, I kind of thought it was time for a move. What am I kind of missing on my resume? Well, I've never like worked harvest at a winery. So I again, like kind of the Cornell USHG network, I got an opportunity to work harvest for 4 months in Washington State, from like August to November, the whole process. Learned a ton, and then moved to Chicago. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to be ready to actually run a wine program. And by the time I got there, the wine director, wine manager position was also very much looped into like general restaurant management, which is fine. It's exactly what restaurants should be doing: is can we be successful? Can we be profitable? Can we be exciting and dynamic? But also, we can't afford to have 8 managers. We can't have like a beer manager and a wine manager and then liquor and then like just operations, and it's way too many salary positions.
The bottom line doesn't work.
Exactly. So I realized at the time that I wanted to be like a direct, like just a wine director and focus solely on that side of the business. And it wasn't what I was doing at the time. I was being pulled into management of the entire floor team. I was part of this great manager group. Everyone there was awesome. I loved the restaurant group that I was with, but it wasn't what I was looking for at the time. And it might not even exist anymore because restaurants can't afford a solo wine manager anymore, you know?
Right, yeah.
So, and that's fair. It's exactly, again, it's responsible business practices. So at the time, my fiance at the time, it was also kind of exhausting for me to get home at like 1 or 2 in the morning, 3 or 4 nights a week, you know. And
wait, your fiance at the time?
Yeah, she at the time. So she was not my fiance at the time, but who later, Francesca.
I thought there was just a previous fiance.
No, at the time.
Wait a minute, whoa, cousin.
No, at the time in Chicago, she was like, you know, she didn't come out directly, I don't think, and say this, but we both knew like this isn't sustainable. There's got to be a different move.
Yeah.
I think often when people are coming out of working the floor of a restaurant in a wine role, they go to distribution and importing, where they're working either directly with wineries bringing the wine over, or they're working directly with restaurants selling the wine.
Yeah.
And none of those really revved my engine personally. They're super important to the wine world, but I didn't feel like the thing that I wanted to do was bring samples of wine to like 5 or 6 different restaurants every day and try to convince them to have this on their wine list instead of something else. But Nick Kokonis and his team of very smart Googlers and designers and marketers and engineers had built this reservation platform called Talk, and I was floored by the opportunities that this could give restaurants. And I wanted to use it where I was working.
Yeah.
And so I knew that, or at least I hoped that, some of what I've been doing for the last 5 years, whether just knowing the restaurant jargon or just knowing the industry or working in a few different cities, would give me kind of a leg up in a sales role at Talk, because I think a lot of their sales staff came from other like business tech sales roles.
Right, and not the
industry,
the product
essentially
that they're trying to sell.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the COO was willing to take a risk, bring on someone from the industry, and I'm super grateful for it.
Yeah. Hey, how long you've been with them now?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. Wow.
Yeah. But again, it was never like, you know, what's my end goal in 5 years? Where do I want to be? Do I want to be back in New York? Do I want to be working in tech? Do I want to be in restaurants at all or not? I never had those thoughts when I was working Harvest or when I was in Chicago.
Yeah.
And now I think it really has set me up. I take my role kind of similar. I'm a sales rep. I'm an account executive, but I very much follow this style as like consulting, consultant sales approach, basically consultative.
Yeah.
And it's
because of that knowledge that you acquired.
Yeah. And the tools that Talk allows restaurants to have. So I can really talk to an operator during like a sales call and just ask them, what are they kind of struggling with, or would this be helpful, or this is what I would do, and kind of bounce ideas off. And it seems to be a great way for me to exercise, again, that restaurant operations role without having to worry about scheduling and payroll and
Yeah,
inventory.
yeah, right. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, because I don't know. Previous to sort of the adventure stuff, I really didn't. I think I was more along that same line where, I was teaching sailing at this one place and then working on boats in Florida and taking deliveries. So for 10 years or so, I was just constantly in the sailing industry in one way or another. And much like you, I bounced around through it quite a bit. And I suppose I found my niche probably in running water sports centers. Like that was sort of where I was really performing pretty well and then also enjoying it. The only problem is I found that I was enjoying it so much that everything else in my life disappeared.
Yeah.
I missed weddings, funerals, everything, because I also was in the Caribbean for the vast majority of that.
Yeah. You can't just skip back for
a
long weekend.
Exactly. And it did. I remember sort of realizing there was so much that I was missing out of life, even though I was like full on enjoying what I was doing.
Right.
But, it was the strangest thing. People would be like, dude, you're working like 14 hours today and you want to do more? And I'm like, yeah, because it's like it's getting better. But
yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, okay. So no 5-year plan. You're just going to keep winging it.
I really
like
love
a Wild West fucking gunslinger.
Yeah, I really love working at Talk. I hope that sometime in the future my career will kind of swing back to wine, whether it's with Talk. There's some really exciting things about working with wineries that we do to help them manage their like tasting room appointments and things. And we started doing some direct to consumer wine offerings, especially over the holidays. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't been involved in any conversations if we're going to continue down that path or what that looks like. But hospitality and food and beverage and wine is always at least within arm's reach.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to continue to be.
I think there's going to be a big boom in it pretty soon here. Once things really like open wide up and people be like, all right, let's do this. We need a vacation. I think there's going to be this major influx of people traveling, people getting out there.
We're already kind of seeing it, actually. I talked to a lot of wineries on Long Island and like the Finger Lakes region within like New York State. Not Sonoma or Napa, just New York State.
Yeah.
And something that's been coming up more and more recently is that people that are early to mid 30s, maybe even late 20s, maybe early 40s, who are starting to value, and who always probably have, but now have the money and the means to travel and value experiences like that. Mm-hmm. They're on like Google Maps and they're zooming in on Long Island and they're seeing all these wineries and they're making a plan of like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. They're staying at this place. Let's rent a car. We're going to go to this winery. We're going to go to this winery.
Yeah.
They expect to be able to make reservations. If they can't see like book a table or make a reservation or book an appointment on Google Maps, they'll be like, well, I guess we're not
going to do that.
Can't go there.
Wow.
And they go to the next one. So, and not everyone, like you can still like call. And this is another problem. First of all, if you're a guest and you're on Google Maps and it's 2 a.m, are you going to call and leave a message for an appointment?
No.
And then when they call you back to confirm it, are you going to answer? You're going to be at work.
Yeah, right.
And then you're going to email them. I'm so sorry. I just got your voicemail. I'd love to show up. And then a day later, you get an email confirming it, and you're like, "Oh, I already made an appointment. Then I'm sorry."
That sounds so archaic.
I know, and that's my entire job is to tell wineries precisely that.
Dude, if you digitize anything in this world, and it will take it over so fast.
Yep. And I have a screen video of like what Talk looks like through like Instagram, where you don't even have to leave the winery's profile to make a reservation on Talk. You can literally like find the picture in the stories, hit the picture and go, oh, this is really pretty. Hit the profile, hit the reserve button, Pups Talk, select the day, select the time, you're done.
Wow.
Versus like calling.
And it's right now primarily where is Talk being used most? What cities? Or is it all over?
Chicago. It's all over. Chicago has been, because our headquarters are there, and Nick Kokonis and the team are from Chicago, so we have a pretty great base of restaurant partners there and other businesses. Napa, Sonoma, Willamette Valley. I mean, even up here, man.
Really?
Yeah. So, Lake Leelanau.
Yeah.
Like a few wineries. I can pull it up. It's pretty cool.
And is this something where is that kind of what you do? Is reach out to these places and basically sell them on becoming part of the Talk family?
Yep.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Here, let me pull up this winery page, and I'll show you how many we're working with.
That's
up here,
pretty interesting.
close by.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I knew what you were doing, but I didn't really know what you were doing.
That's fair.
It's like, yeah, I work at a restaurant.
Yeah.
But I don't think I ever asked what position, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, and I don't speak for Talk. I'm not up here being a spokesman, but just personally, I think it's the best booking platform for hospitality industry.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay. Yeah, okay, I get it. I get it now. Yeah. I'm slowly becoming less and less archaic, but I say one of the things that happens with me every time I go out to sea for an extended period of time, I get so used to the low level input that it's sort of, I'm very standoffish when I get back to land, where I'll go. This time when I got back, I went weeks without looking at YouTube, without looking at any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I just, because I didn't want it to invade my brain at all.
Yeah.
I was enjoying just the fact that I could sit and look at, the clouds or a sunset for a while without wanting to constantly pick up my phone.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now, I'm on land for 6 weeks and my phone's right here next to me. It's like, oh, I did it again.
I spoke to Francesca this morning, and it's like I leave my phone places around here and I forget about it, and it is liberating.
Yeah, right.
It's very nice to be like, oh, where the hell did I put that?
Yeah, exactly.
When was the last time I was using it? It was a while ago, wasn't it? Like, that feels very
Is it
nice.
charged? Wait, what? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, I think we'll probably wrap it up right there. Always
long way of answering your only question was,
yeah,
I don't know.
What's your 5-year plan? Well,
don't
let
have
me
one.
go into a tirade about
exactly.
my last 5 years.
Yeah, no,
No.
It's been really fun. It's that movement into the white space and not being like, no, I'm fixated on this plan.
Yeah.
It for better or worse. Again, like if I got to USHG in New York and it was like in 5 years I want to be a master sommelier, who knows if I could have done it or not, but I would probably still be in New York.
Yeah,
I would have been running a wine program at a restaurant, studying a lot. And I don't know what life would have looked like, and if it would be better, if it'd be worse, it'd be more money or less money, more industry connections, less industry connections. But in that time, I have lived in a few different cities around the country. I've been back to Italy a lot. It's been awesome. I've gotten to know programs like Salesforce and Slack. I've become a more, I think, detail-oriented, structured person in like my day-to-day work. It's everything that I've done I've really tried to take the best of it and build habits around it and become a better fill in the blank. Whether it's appreciating restaurants more, or whether it's appreciating organization like my calendar, or it's appreciating going out to dinner at 7 or having weekends off, that because I was never really able to do that when you're working in a restaurant.
Yeah. No, true. Well, and I mean, we might have to do a whole nother podcast about it, but you're about to jump into the ring of the married man. And that's an adventure that terrifies me beyond belief.
It seems to be a common thread, though, that when I ask like cousins and friends to get married, I'm kind of joking, like, oh, what's different? And they're like, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing's
Well, how long have you and Francesca been together?
7 years.
7 years. So you're common law married anyway.
Basically, yeah.
So she gets everything already.
When you put it that way.
Yeah, right. Now I'm starting to think.
Yeah.
Well, I absolutely love having you on the podcast. It's always super interesting. And
Thanks, man. I'm sorry we didn't get into wine that much. If you want to do a quick follow-up and just get another bottle, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll do it. I still think, man, you got to do that. Either a YouTube channel or a TikTok channel, half in the bag, where an advanced somm basically critiques the worst wines.
Yeah.
That only come in boxes.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like sometimes Gatorade. Like Gatorade has all the flavors. No one knows them. Red, yellow, orange, blue.
Yeah.
Like Franzi kind of sometimes is like that.
Yeah, right.
Other box wine. I mean, it's not really like that because it says like Pinot Noir or Chardonnay. But
well, they do in the grocery store now. I mean, there's always Franzi is the big one everybody knows, but there's a ton of boxed wines, different labels, all sorts of stuff now, and I don't know. I know a lot of people that get those because they're a little more convenient I have friends that always have a box of wine on their counter, just because they don't have to open it, close it.
Yeah.
They don't have to drink the whole thing if they don't want to.
And there's great boxed and like, or the wines that come in like the bags.
Mm-hmm.
There are great producers that are starting to do that more and more because of environment and because it's less expensive and because like there's probably a few different reasons for it.
It's got to be less expensive because it's definitely not about the environment.
Yeah.
Glass is the most environmentally friendly. You can just throw it, and the glass
guess that's true.
Glass is sand, man.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, it takes a long time for it to decompose, but it's not like plastic that's breaking into pieces and then fish are eating it and stuff like that. I mean, you throw a bottle in the sea and it sinks. You're creating essentially a little ecosystem for something to live in it until eventually it gets covered up by
silt.
The silt of the sea.
Yeah.
Technically I believe most of the seafloor, and I probably dead wrong about this, but I believe it's the almost microscopic shells of the coccolithophore, which is a type of, it's like a plankton, I believe, but it's, biomass probably makes up half of the entire planet, and it's just constantly raining down just this little piece of calcium from its shell. And those are just raining down in the trillions in the ocean. But they're so small, but they slowly fill it up. I mean, that you get on the sort of what's the best way? Like the cosmic scale, or not the cosmic scale, but like the planetary scale of some of these ecosystems out on those oceans. Oh my God. I think my biggest realization was when I started going and sailing through the krill fields in the Indian Ocean. And just realizing, I scooped up a bunch of them, and the krill are only the size of like an ant.
Yeah.
But I'm looking out at the ocean, and I'm thinking, holy cow, okay, there's literally trillions and trillions of these, and that's how all these whales.
I was about to ask, like,
there's probably millions of whales, and they're eating krill.
They can't get that big eating nothing.
Yeah, and you're just like, okay, so I've been sailing through this krill for days now. That's hundreds of miles. It's probably big, sir. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's always been pretty amazing, the stuff that pops in the old head. Yeah. All right, man. Well, before we just start rambling on too much, but thank you again. Always love having you. You're a repeat offender on the podcast now. So
thanks, man. I'm happy to be here. This is always tons of fun, and it's just another benefit of being able to come up here and look where we are and look what we get to do.
There we go.
So thank you.
All right. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks for listening.